I would like to call the special call meeting for Fairfield County Council to order Wednesday, May the 29th, 2024. Calling it to order at 5:05 excuse me, p.m. Next, do I have an approval of the agenda? It's been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Let the record reflect 7-0 on approving the agenda. Invocation by Councilwoman Green. Thank you, Ms. Green. Next, we are down to 4A. Ms. Dr. Roberts, if you wouldn't mind reading 4A. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of council. An ordinance to establish operating budgets for the operation of the county government of Fairfield County for the fiscal year commencing July 1, 2024, to provide for the levy of taxes for Fairfield County for the fiscal year commencing July 1, 2024, to establish fees and service charges for Fairfield County for the fiscal year commencing July 1, 2024, to provide for the expenditure of tax revenues and other county-related funds, and to provide for certain fiscal matters and other matters related to county government.
Doctor, we will open this public hearing at 5:07 p.m. Did anybody sign to speak?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. Don Goldbach.
Good afternoon, Don Goldbach, District 2. Couple things. First, the county budget is a public document, and having just one copy available at this location is not really effective for the citizens of the county. So I would really request that in the future that we have this available online. I mean, it is a document that the finance department puts out, so it should be very easy to put online, but it would make it much more convenient for the citizens to actually look at it. So that's my request. Second, because of the discussion on the agencies, and I think you had a great example here with Angie, I'm sitting there thinking, well, what's the value we get for the money we spend for each agency? And I think what she did was she quantified very, very clearly what the Council of Aging does. So that's one agency that's obviously providing real value to people, to citizens. So, you can judge value in different ways, and I think each agency might have its own criteria, or you might have your own criteria for how you judge the value they provide. But I think that's one thing that should be looked at before, and I think, I appreciate the challenge on the, $93,000 versus what some other counties might pay, but, are they providing $93,000 worth of value? Are they providing $3,000 worth of value? That's, I think, it's a return on investment sort of discussion or decision. So I would ask you to consider that. And the last point I would like to make is regarding the budget, the proposed budget. And if I understand it correctly, there was a line item in there to move $2.5 million from the reserve fund into the operating budget. I may have the terminology not quite right, and I look at where we were, what was on the website as of April, the end of April, and the revenue year to date was $32.6 million, and the expenses were $26.7 million. So we had more revenue than expenses to the tune of $5.9 million after 10 months. And that's a pretty healthy balance. Now, there's probably some spending that needs to happen. I was just talking with the fire chief. There's some expenses that are happening the last 2 months, but I can't imagine we'll spend $6 million in 2 months, more than what's already budgeted for those 2 months. So I think instead of having to pull $2.5 million from the reserve, we should be able to put several million into it. And if we do that, and we pull that several million out during this next fiscal year and provide salary increases for EMS, for fire, for sheriff, provide the things that we need to retain and attain and attract and retain that talent. And for fire, for sheriff, for EMS, and then the animal shelter, I think, needs help. So I see that there could be some money there unless I'm really misunderstanding things. So thank you, and I apologize. I have to leave for another meeting, so.
Kathy Falk.
Hi, Kathy Falk, District 4. Good afternoon, everybody. Pertaining to the budget, and specifically animal control, and more specifically, a veterinarian. Thank you, first of all, for your willingness to take a good, hard look at this. I implore you to please give it serious consideration. I was on my way over here today, and I needed to speak with Lee Knotts, who is the president of the Humane Society with Kershaw County. And in our conversation, and she led me into this, we spoke about having a veterinarian. They have a veterinarian at the Kershaw Humane Society. It is currently a full-time vet. Last year they were without. Lee said to me, she said, Kathy, I cannot tell you how much money it saves, how much it provides wonderful service for the community, and what a positive thing it is to have a full-time vet in your facility. So I would say to you guys, as you're looking at this, if we could start with 3 days, 3 mornings, I think, is what Ms. Shaw had requested. That's a great start. You all may find that we may need to increase that to a veterinarian 5 days a week. You could provide services to your community. You would not have people going to the clock at Winsboro once a month to sit in the heat, in the cold, in the rain, I kid you not, waiting for hours to see the veterinarians with Pets Inc., because that's the only service that our community has right now. So we wouldn't have to do that. Instead, they could make an appointment, they could come to the veterinarian, and they would pay reasonable funds, but they would pay to see a veterinarian. Hoof and Paw could, provide programs. We could continue our support to the shelter. We could also continue our support because of Roscoe, to increase the number of spay-neuter surgeries. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. What a wonderful investment this would be. It's an investment. So I encourage you to look at it that way. It really would work out that way. And last but not least, as we move forward, we've got to get these ordinances into place, because that's going to change tremendously over time what is happening in this county with animal welfare. Thank you so much for your hard work and your time, and have a great afternoon. Thank you.
Randy Bright.
Randy Bright, Ridgeway, District 1. I don't think we're ready to pass any budget right now. We've got way too much work to do. We've got at least 4 weeks worth of meetings that we can make. What do we need to do? Like Kathy said, we need to look at investments. And what we just talked about, the investments in a full-time vet, the investments in a ordinance to reduce cost. You either pay us now or pay a lot more later. If you want to think about what we need to do and invest in the animal shelter operation, require the economic development team to take all investors on a tour of our animal shelter. Think about that. And if you don't think they are aware of our animal shelter, you have no idea what investors know and will know. Think of it as an investment. The other aspect of it is, of course, investment in the people. You can't vote on a second reading of a budget that the public has virtually no access to at all. One book for 20,000, 21,000 people secured in the lobby of this building is not transparent whatsoever. You cannot move forward with such a non-transparent piece of whatever. Next, speaking of investment, you've got a lot of work to do because as far as these salary issues for first responders, for all employees, the investment there, it's either pay me now or pay me a whole lot later. There's nothing more costly than turnover because we don't take care of employees. Nothing more costly to taxpayers, nothing more costly to our entire county operations. So you've got to work through that. And yes, you've got to look at those agencies that that are not under our direct control and that we can save some money there. Also, you need to look at the investments. I don't know if you're aware, and I've brought this up before, it's gone down now. We're earning, according to a recent FOIA, 0.25% on money, millions of dollars in reserve funds that we could be earning 5% in very safe funds. You need to get with the treasurer on that. That's a couple $100,000 a year we may be throwing away for funds that we could use as investments in the county and investments in the people and investments that taxpayers have. And have you looked at the comments on the book, in the book? Some were good from department heads, some were not good. You need to go back to these people and say, hey, you're not justifying your request. Justify your request to us. Look at the comments. Some are very good, some they can't justify what they're asking for. Thank you. You're not ready.
No one else signed up to speak, Mr. Chair.
We will close this public hearing at 5:17 p.m. Next, we are down to, I apologize, I lost my place here. Next, we are down to item 5, ordinance, resolutions, and orders. Dr. Roberts, would you mind reading that, please?
Yes, sir. Second reading ordinance number 834, an ordinance to establish operating budgets for the operation of the county government of Fairfield County for the fiscal year commencing July 1, 2024, to provide for the levy of taxes for Fairfield County for the fiscal year commencing July 1, 2024, to establish fees and service charges for Fairfield County for the fiscal year commencing July 1, 2024, to provide for the expenditure of tax revenues and other county-related funds, and to provide for certain fiscal matters and other matters related to county government.
So moved.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion?
We're talking about this right here,
Yes, ma'am, without the amendments.
and are we going to have a work session so we can get all this other stuff ironed out that we brought up?
Yes, ma'am, it's entirely up to council. We'd be glad to do another one.
So when is the work session going to be?
Ms. Roberts will come up with a date and send it out to all council members along with administration to see what date works for everybody.
We have a date.
No, we don't.
We don't have a date.
No. It has to be sent out to all council members and administration.
Let me just ask a question. Their next regular meeting is scheduled for June 10th, and that was when we had planned to give third reading. You've got time. You have only deadline you got is you have to have a budget adopted by June 30th. So do you want to try to do the work session before your June 10th meeting, or do you want to do it before the 24th, or have a special meeting on the 17th even? You've got a couple dates in there, so just an idea of where you'd like to go. We can be ready next week if you want to do it next week.
Council,
Next Wednesday, is that what you're saying?
It,
Well, next Wednesday. We've been having them on Wednesday at 3:30, so.
Council, do y'all want to look at your schedule and see? Would you look at it as soon as possible and let Mr. Keegan know
Suits me fine.
if next Wednesday would be available or another day?
If it's okay with Dr. Roberts, if you could send out a note in the morning and just get responses for the 5th, if that's the date we're going to shoot for.
Thank you.
Excuse me,
Go
Mr. Chair. Any thought, I'm fine with that too, but any thought about having the work session prior to the next regular council meeting
He won't be here.
on the 10th? Oh, that's right.
He won't be here.
Okay, that's right. One other thing, would it be okay during this time to ask you to explain why Fairfield County Chamber of Commerce is different to other counties? Is that?
I think it's been
we need to
moved.
stick that?
It's been seconded.
We're having a discussion.
Now in discussion. Mr. Roof, go ahead.
I was just asking, is that discussion, this is pertaining to the budget, but it's about chamber
Yeah.
specifically, being Fairfield County, being different as far as tourism and funding. So would you explain that to everybody that you were telling me?
Yes, sir. Most communities that I've worked in the past, the Parks, Recreation, and Tourism Department was all done by the county. Here, we just do Parks and Rec, and the Chamber of Commerce is doing the tourism. So it does make some sense for the county to help fund the tourism part of that budget, if you will, because we don't do that. And tourism is something that you're always trying to grow. You're trying to get those folks to come from out of town and spend their money here. So I don't know what that number needs to be, but the fact that the chamber does the tourism part and we don't, it does make some sense to do some funding for the tourism part of their budget.
Okay, thank you. I just know for everybody, I wasn't aware of that being different from other counties, so that we're maybe need to up the ante some to kind of, because we don't do that part of it.
Can you check into these outside agencies and see which ones are really benefiting us and which ones maybe not so much?
We can ask them for some measurables like number of clients or number of meals served or anything that they got that they could measure
Yeah.
for us and see if that'll help you out.
Well, you heard Council on Aging.
Sure.
I mean, that's super. I mean, that's for us, and that's for our elderly, and we have got an elderly population in this county. So, and you're gonna find out about the dog shelter and the amount that will be saved. Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? And if there's anything that council would like administration and finance to find out before the workshop, make sure you send an email to them so they can have it ready before the next work session. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor? All those opposed? Let the record reflect 7-0. Second reading of ordinance number 834. If there's nothing else on the floor, I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, before we do, I'd just like to say, and I think everybody else will agree probably, that while I know it would be better to have been further along in this before we have the second reading, but just for the time factor, that we will get all of this ironed out before the third reading. So I'll make a motion to adjourn.
It's been moved and properly seconded to adjourn. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? Let the record reflect 7-0. We are adjourned. Thank you.